the first book of Samuel, session 63. And yesterday we saw how David said, Yahuwah will deliver me out of all tribulation. And now in chapter 27, the first verse, David said in his heart, I will now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines. So, one moment you are really entrusting Yahuwah. Your faith is so good. You have learned through all your tribulation to trust in Him while you are journeying through the valley of the shadow of death and despair and darkness, where he was, remember, Hachilah in Yeshimon. But before Yahuwah sent him through despair and desolation and darkness, Yahuwah has taken him through Ziph and Maon, which is all of our processes. Yahuwah will always teach us how to handle any situation that comes along our way in this journey we have on earth. And then He will allow these situations to play out because we are in a world that is under a curse because of our disobedience. It is not that He sits there and plays a chess game and think, oh, what can I do today to test this one? How can I see if that one really loves me? How can I teach that one the mysteries of the universe? You know, the curse automatically will bring the periods of wilderness journeys into our lives. And all Yahuwah does, He can't just wave a magic wand and make it all disappear, because we have given this authority of this beautiful earth He created into the hand of the enemy. So He can't just come in and wave a magic wand when He returns and He's going to destroy everything that we have given into the hand of the enemy. He's going to destroy and make a new heaven and a new earth and establish the kingdom of David and put the son of David on the throne. And then the people that wears His mark, that has gone through these wilderness journeys, that has survived because of their faith, even if they lost their lives, but their souls have survived, they will join with Him in the new kingdom. So these journeys are allowed to teach us to trust Him. But even, you know, if the Bible was really like a lot of people say, it's just been written by human beings, you know, it's not from God, you know, you guys just made up your own religion. If that was true, then the people that has, you know, falsely written the Bible, the human beings, would have made David and Abraham and Job and Moses and all these people appear like absolute superheroes, always winning, and this God is giving them only peace and prosperity. But here we see in chapter 27 verse 1, after all the victories that David had over himself, over his inside enemy, more than his outside enemy, over all the disappointment he had with the people that gave him up to Saul while he was only helping those people. You know, all his journeys that he had being refined, going through fear and trepidation and anguish and hunger and cold in the caves, and even with the testing of having the opportunity to do something by taking a sword in your own hand and killing the enemy. He survived all of that. His faith got built up into such beautiful heights. But and Moses and all these guys are given to us by Yahuwah as examples, because any human being has lapses in faith. We get to a point where our believing in Him has brought us this far, and sometimes we get tired and we have a bit of a fallback. And even that is written in Scripture. In the life of the anointed one, the king that's anointed, David, called the beloved, representing not only the church but representing Messiah. Even in this beautiful, amazing superhero guy that overcame Goliath and won so many battles for Israel and won so many personal battles between him and Saul, and even between him and his own men. In his own life, God has written down even this bad experience where he makes the mistake and where he, for a moment, turns to his own ideas of running away even more and becoming despaired in his heart, because he says in his heart, I will perish. One day Saul is going to catch me and is going to kill me. He said many times, God is my judge. He said yesterday, God will deliver me out of the tribulation. And he knows that he is on the side of good and Saul is on the side of evil. But in his ideas of running away towards the Philistines, it's not necessarily bad. But for a moment here, it looks like in his own heart, he's not speaking to his men. He's not even speaking to Yahuwah and say, he's not bringing his fear to Yahuwah. He's talking to himself. And here we have the black wolf again, if you can remember. Wolf again, if you can remember. When you start speaking to yourself and you answer yourself, and in your own heart you are meditating on your fear, you are thinking over it and over it, whether it's fear or your own depression or something you have against somebody else, you know what it's like. You have this inner conversation. When you had a fight with somebody, you always lull over that fight for days on end. You can't sleep at night because the whole conversation runs through your head over and over again. And you think, I should have said that. I could have done that. I wish I said this. I've learned when I take that anger and that hurt and that offense in prayer to Yahuwah, and I discuss the whole conversation with him, it actually so many times, I want to tell you every single time, if I went morning angry, but if I went to bed and I spoke to Yahuwah about what happened, and I bring it to him and I discuss it with him, and I let him look into my heart that is hurt by whatever happened, or that is fearful, or that is angry, or that is not forgiving, then he has a way to show me my own faults. And by that, I'm able to let it go and forgive the other person and move on. So instead of speaking to Yahuwah, David says in his own heart, I will perish now. There's nothing better for me to do than to run to the land of the Philistines. Saul will despair of me, and he will seek me no more in all the coasts of Israel. And this will be the way in which I will escape out of his hand. So here David is making his own plans. Yahuwah didn't tell him to run to the Philistines. But even in David's making his own plans, Yahuwah doesn't leave him. Sometimes Yahuwah even allows that to happen, because there's so much again for us to learn from this new journey that David is going on now. And David arose, and he passed over with the 600 men that were with him unto Achish, the son of Maoch, the king of Gath. So these are the human plans that David is making without consulting Yahuwah. And sometimes, like I said, Yahuwah will allow our human plans to play out, even like whatever Pharaoh or Nebuchadnezzar or the Antichrist in the future will plan and bring to pass. They will think it's their own thoughts, but even through that, Yahuwah's ultimate big agenda always plays out. So God sits in heaven and he watches over David, and he sees David making this plan, and he knew David was going to make this plan. And even in that, there's so much that's going to happen to teach David so many things, not only about God's love for him, but God's providence for him, and about the final end-day battle between ultimately good and evil. And now look at where David is going. He goes to Achish, and Achish in the Hebrew means only a man. It's got the meaning with only a man. Yes, it's got some other meanings like black. I'm terrified. I'm blackened by being terrified. But Achish in the Hebrew also has the meaning of it's just a man. It's a human being. So David's man plans, my own self plans, leads him to Achish, only a man, only human plans, blackened by terrifying blackenedness. He comes to Achish, only a man, because that's what you. And this is at Ma'och. Ma'och means oppression. Can you believe it? And Gath, the king of Gath, Gath is a wine press. So sometimes our human plans can lead us into or maybe through oppression. And this will be part of the wine press where the grapes are. You have to squash a grape to get the wine out. And the Bible talks about the new wine that Joshua says must come into new wineskins. And that's the renewed man, the one new man that we are made if we follow Yahuwah through thick and thin, through all these journeys. And that's why if we are not being trodden out in the winepress in this life's journey, then we will be part of the winepress that Yeshua will tread out in the end days. And then there's going to be no more redemption. Yeshua will tread out in the end days. And then there's going to be no more redemption for that wine, because that is the whore of Babylon's cup. That is the wine that Yeshua will be treading out and destroying with his feet. So we have to, with our human plans sometimes, go through oppression in the winepress. It's one of the experiences and journeys that fathers allow, that Father Yahuwah allows in our life, so that we can be built up better, be stronger afterwards, and our faith can, even after it has lapsed, can be built up again. So let's see what David's journey in the land of the Philistines will bring to him. David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his 2 wives, Ahi, Noam, and Yezreeletes, and Abigail, the Carmelites. Question: David had to leave all his family behind, but eventually it looks like him and his 600 men got all their family, their wives and their children, to join them on this journey. So if it's 600 men and each man has a wife, David has got 4 already at this stage. Well, one of them is not with him because Saul gave her to somebody else, Michal, but he's got 3 wives with him. I don't know how many children. And each of the 600 men has their wives and their children. So, how many people were here? It's almost like the Exodus out of Egypt. You read about the 600,000 men, but then you don't count the women and the children and the old people, that is not counted. And the young men below 20, that's not counted. So this is quite a big group. This is a massive, huge group. And it was told Saul that David was fled to Gath again for him. So why is Saul not looking for David anymore? Well, Saul's not going to go into the land of the Philistines. That's for sure. He's too scared. He doesn't have David, his warrior, with him anymore. And David said unto Achish, If I have now found grace in your eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should your servant dwell in the royal city with you? All right, David, you killed Goliath. You killed quite a few thousand of my Philistine men. And now you come to me for safekeeping, and you even ask me for a town. What made Achish, the son of Ma'och, the king of Gath, give grace to David? David said, if I found grace in your eyes. I think, and we'll see this later on, and David, even when he gives his loyalty to somebody, he does remain loyal up to a point. But he gave his loyalty to Achish, and he said, I'm now with you. I'm in your hand. I'm a refugee out of the land of Israel. I cannot go back. I am not a warrior in the royal army of King Saul of Israel anymore. So you don't have to be afraid of me. When I'm in your land and when I'm under your protection, I will be like one of your people, and I will actually help you in your battles. So this made Achish decide to give David refuge. So Achish gave him Ziklag that day, wherefore Ziklag pertaineth unto the kings of Judah unto this day. How amazing is that? In the land of the Philistines, this town, Ziklag, belongs to the kings of Judah. It belongs to the tribe of Yehudah up to this day. Because in the worst conditions that David could, he fled to the enemy's territory, and there God allowed the enemy to give him a piece of land. And it's quite strange if you remember a couple of sessions ago, chapter 21, verse 13, David came to Ziklag, and he changed his behavior before them, and feigned himself mad in their hands, and scrabbled onto the doors of the gate, and let his spittle fall down upon his beard. Then said Achish to his servants, "No, this man is mad." So it's funny how many conversations did David have to have with Achish to tell him, I'm not really mad. What happened between me and you before, I just pretended to be mad. I don't know. Did David explain to this King Achish that he wasn't? Did David explain to this King Achish that he wasn't really mad? Anyway, Ziklag was given to David. And it's interesting, if you go through the history of this little town, Ziklag, you'll find that it was given to Simeon, to the descendants of Simeon as a dwelling place. But because Simeon didn't extinguish all the enemies like Yhwh commanded them, the Philistines are now living here. We also see later on that David was in Ziklag when he heard about Saul that was killed. And the man that brought the message of Saul being killed was actually because he was arrogant and said, "Oh yeah, Saul is killed." Remember, David had a lot of respect for God's anointed, and he killed the man that gave him that terrible message. And also we see how in all the rest of the Chronicles and even in the book of Nehemiah, Ziklag is mentioned as the outside where the tribes of Israel is also living in, especially Judah, since it was given to David. So David and his men dwelt in the country of the Philistines for a full year and 4 months. And David and his men went up and invaded the Geshurites and the Gezrites and the Amalekites, for those nations were of old the inhabitants of the land, as you go to Shur unto the land of Egypt. So these were the age-old instruction from Yhwh to destroy the Geshurites, the Gezrites, the Amalekites, and all the Hittites and all the Perizzites. And David went to attack them, fulfilling the commandment that Yhwh gave to Joshua and to Israel of old, because these nations were of old the inhabitants of the land that God said they needed to destroy. You remember the reason for this is the Nephilim. Hopefully you've done. David smote the land and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away the sheep and the oxen and the asses and the camels and the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. And Achish said, "Whither have you made a road to today? Where did you go today?" And David said, "Against the south of Judah, and against the south of the Jerahmeelites, and against the south of the Kenites." And David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, lest they should tell on us, saying, "So did David, and so will be his manner all the while he dwells in the country of the Philistines." And Achish believed David, saying, "He has made his people Israel utterly to abhor him. Therefore he shall be my servant forever." Okie dokes. Now we have a typical example again of David lying. We've discussed this in detail before. We found a couple of places where David outright lied. And here he lies again. He said he went places where David outright lied. And here he lies again. He said he went to fight with Judah. He went back to the south of, it looks to me like Jerusalem. And he fought against the south of the Kenites. This is all in the Israel region. So he didn't tell Achish that he was fighting with the Amalekites. And that's why he killed everyone, so that there was no survivor that could go and tell King Achish that he was actually fighting with them and what he was doing against them. And now Achish, in his mind, thinks, oh, this is how David is proving his obedience and loyalty to me. He's even fighting against his own people. Now where his people loved him before, they are surely to hate him now, because he has been found to fight against his own people. So while David is secretly fighting against the enemies of Israel, let the enemy think he is on his side. But in the meantime, he's actually still doing what he knows Yahuwah wants him to do, trying to kill all the enemies around Israel, trying to get Jerusalem safe from attacks from these nations. But Achish thinks David is now going to be his servant forever. Chapter 28, and it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare to fight with Israel. And Achish said unto David, Know you assuredly that you shall go out with me to battle, you and your men. And David said to Achish, Surely you shall know that your servant, surely you shall know what your servant can do. And Achish said to David, Therefore will I make thee keeper of mine head forever. So Achish is telling David, you don't have a choice, you're going to come out with me to fight against Israel. And David said, you know what I can do. And therefore, David said, you know what I can do. And therefore, Achish is now promoting David and make him keeper of Achish's head. Meaning basically, he's now the security guard for the king. Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. And the Philistines gathered themselves together. Okay, let's just talk about this. So once Samuel was dead, there was no prophet in the land. And Saul decided to put away and get rid of all the witches, the warlocks, and the people speaking to the dead, and all the necromancers. And there was even a death penalty to anyone that would entertain such people. So these people had to either go into hiding, or they were expelled out of the land, or they just didn't tell anybody that they spiritists anymore. So they tried to live normal lives. These demonic, infested, spiritist, new age people that can speak to demons, that, you know, they say they speak to the dead, but it's actually familiar spirits. We know the dead sleeps. The Bible says 1,000,000 times, and you can do the Where the Hell Do We Go When We Die Bible study on the Two Trees YouTube page if you don't understand that. But the dead sleep, and the dead cannot praise Yahuwah, and the dead cannot know anything. So the dead cannot be communicated to. So even Samuel cannot be communicated to. And we see that it looks like the Bible says. And I'll give you the link when we get to that part, to the specific Bible study where I prove to you this was not Samuel. So Saul, for whatever reason, decided gift. So there are prophetic gifts from God. All his prophets, can see God, whatever God shows them, that's what they see in the future. But then you've got the prophets of the enemy. You've got the false prophets. And they are also shown stuff by the evil spirits in the air. And many of them, with all their rituals, does tap into the power of the occult. And they are seen as people that can actually prophesy, although they are just giving us the doctrines of demons. And we know very clearly from the Torah, Leviticus 19:31, 20 verse 6, 27, Deuteronomy 18 verse 10 to 14, and many other examples. God, the spirit world does exist, but God has commanded us not to dabble in the dark spirit world. It is not for us to see in the dark spirit world. It is not for us to see. If he wants to show a vision, or in a dream, he wants to speak to anyone, and many people will send me their dreams and say, oh, God gave me this in this dream, but then the stuff they dream about doesn't correlate with the word of God. So if the dreams and the visions of these prophets are not from Yahuwah, if it doesn't compare to the law and the prophets, then, I disregard that 100%. Because every Tom, Dick, and Harry these days want to have dreams, and they all say it's from Yahuwah. And there's so many things in these dreams that are just not biblical. But God does decide to speak to people through dreams and visions. And when it's really God speaking to them, then that is his choice to, through his prophets, show what he is about to do In the book of Amos, God says he does nothing without showing his prophets first. But into the dark secrets. That is something that God doesn't want to allow us to do, because that's where the deception is. And besides that, the moment you dabble into the dark secret mysteries, you're opening the door to demons and to Satan. So God is instructing his people since the beginning of time not to be involved with the secrets of the fallen angels, with the communication of dead spirits, with necromancy, with the occult, with familiar spirits, with wizardry, and witches. Because that's the kind of stuff that the fallen angels taught human beings. Taught them how to mix potions and get certain roots of plants and mix it together and make potions, and then you can conjure up all kinds of things. And that's why the Bible says Noah and his family, because they didn't take part in the whole world system that was infiltrated with this fallen angel Nephilim seed. He was the only one that was found pure in his generation, in his genetics, and in his spirit, and in his faith in God. He was the only righteous man left. No human being is supposed to dabble into the dark world. But here we see that after Samuel died, whatever the reason was that Saul decided to expel all the people that has the gift of the dark occult world, we see now that the land is without anybody giving any direction. The Philistines gathered themselves together and came and pitched in Shunem, and Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa. And when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart was greatly trembled. Just like all the previous times when he sat under the pomegranate tree, and the Philistines was a huge garrison, and Goliath was massive, and he was trembling together with all Israel and the priest. But then he had little David, young man David, full of the Spirit of Yhwh, coming to the rescue. Now he doesn't have David anymore. And now he sits there trembling, looking out towards this garrison, knowing that he is going to have to fight this war. David is no longer here. And when Saul inquired of Yhwh, Yhwh did not answer him, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. So God has stopped speaking to Saul a long time ago. And now, the Urim, those stones that the high priest used, the Urim and the Thummim, Exodus 28 verse 30, you'll put in the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Thummim, and they shall be over Aaron's heart. So the high priest always had the Urim and the Thummim, and this was a way of communication. It's very mysterious, so we're not going to delve too deep into that because we don't have it anymore. And people that are using crystals these days, that's dabbling into the dark world. Don't say, oh, this is the Urim and the Thummim. So the high priest had no answer for Saul from Yhwh. The Urim didn't light up to show what Yhwh wants to tell him, whether to go out against the Philistines because God will be with you, or whether God is not going to be with you. The Urim just remained dark. It didn't light up. And also, none of the prophets, Saul asked all the prophets, inquire for me from Yhwh. But Saul asked all the prophets, inquire for me from Yhwh. But Yhwh didn't answer the beast system at all. The king that used to be an anointed of Yhwh has now turned into an antichrist figure, and God will not answer them. They will be in despair and in fear at the end days, because God is with us and not with them. So in this specific case, Saul, what did you expect? Did you really expect that Yhwh is going to answer you? We will continue with Saul and the witch of Endor tomorrow, but showing how far Saul has fallen. He's been that amazing, beautiful man. Do you remember when we started with Samuel, with the book of Samuel, and Saul was chosen to be king? He was a beautiful man, showing so many messianic promises in his life. And now his inner God, his own self, his evil nature, become an utterly wicked man. And he has fallen to such low levels that he is now, in the absence of God's presence, is going to look for Satan's help. This is how far people fall when they start on this downward spiral that Saul did, that was born in jealousy. He loved David. David did all these mighty things. But when that woman sang that song, Saul killed his thousands, but David his 10,000s. The moment Saul heard the woman singing that, jealousy burned up in his heart, and from that moment he looked to destroy David. And his downward spiral brought him to the lowest of low, so low that he goes down basically into Sheol, into the grave, to go and call he thought was Samuel, but it was a familiar spirit, because the woman was called a witch with a familiar spirit. And we'll look into that again tomorrow. But what we learned in this session today is that human plans will never work out. It's quite by coincidence that David went to Achish, whose name in Hebrew means only a man, and how he is the king of Gath in this area of Ma'och, that means oppression, because a lot of what he does leads to oppression, and all human plans leads to oppression. Achish means only a man, David's human plans, and we see now even Saul's human plans leads to oppression. And through oppression is how David will learn to trust Yhwh again. But in oppression, in Saul's worst, by following his Achish, his only human plans, not turning to Yhwh at all. And now that he does turn to him, Yhwh says, you cried to me and I don't hear you, because when I cried to you, you didn't hear me. You don't obey me. So when you call to me, I don't obey you. So Saul's human plans is bringing him down to the lowest kind of oppression there is. And what we've learned in today's session is to not go to Achish, but to go to Yhwh. To not talk to yourself in your own heart, but to talk to Yhwh. To not follow your own